Hi everybody, I'm Bill Sanders and this is WatchArtSci, the art and science of watch collection. Today what I'd like to do is to take a look at the high horology, if you will, of watches that are under $5,000. Now, by under $5,000, I mean they're either brand new or condition zero unworn, and you can pick one up for less than $5,000. Now, the thing about this is that a lot of these, you can get them in great shape used for a lot less than that. But as a starting point or a break point, or price that we'll all go broke point, I decided, well, I'll take $5,000. Now, in order to choose which watches were worthy of this, what I looked at was not their resale value. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in their excellence as a watch. And so if you're worried about that, there are lots of other places you can go to find out about resale value. Okay, everything I know is that if you get a Patek Philippe or a Rolex, you're doing pretty well. Otherwise, I'm not sure. And I'm not even sure about those either. So let's take a look at 5 today, and then next Friday, I want to take a look at another 5. I tried to come up with 5 that I thought were really, really excellent ones in terms of what you're paying for. And some of these are iffy, in my opinion, okay? But on the other hand, I thought, well, it really is not fair not to mention them, because I think some of these you're going to really like a lot, even though they're sort of, like I said, some of these may be considered a little iffy. Okay, now, where did I get information that these are good watches? Well, the place I usually go is to the Grand Prix d'Horlogerie de Genève and take a look at two things. First of all, if they entered, did they make the short list? This is important because a lot more make the short list than actually win. I mean, you have one award for hundreds of watches, and if they don't win that, then they're out of it. Well, that didn't seem too fair, and I would miss a lot of good watches that way. And so I thought, well, I'll broaden it out and see if they made the short list or not. If they didn't make the short list, because I've seen some that have consistently not made the short list, and for a good reason. Okay, let's get started. The first one I want to look at is Tag Heuer. Tag Heuer is one that I've had a lot of hesitation on in terms of high horology. They make beautiful watches. They sell a lot of them. But in terms of high horology, where are they? Now, if we look at the Grand Prix Awards, not only have they won 7, one of the ones they won the Aiguille d'Or. And I mean, in other words, the Golden Hand, the best award that you could win. However, that was a $150,000 watch. So, well, that's sort of something that they went after and they got. All right. Which means, though, is that Tag Heuer's been thinking about this. Let's think about we have on our mind not just how many we can sell, but also how to make a really good watch. So this time, I thought, well, it'd be a good idea to include Tag Heuer. One of the other criteria that I had was that they had an in-house movement. Some of the best ones that they had actually had somebody else's movement in it. Tag Heuer is sort of one example. Now, they have this caliber called 1887, and the 1887 is sort of based on the Seiko. Okay, when I say sort of based, they had bought the rights a long time ago on a certain caliber that they could use, but then they really did make it their own, and they added they got the column wheel chronograph, And they added a rocking pinion to it and some other kinds of things to really make it their own. And then in 2010, they won the Petite Aiguille Grand Prix of the prize called the Petite Aiguille for this Carrera caliber 1887. And it's $3,000 brand new, which is a pretty good deal. And it's a watch that I do like. Caliber 36 is another good one by Tag Heuer. And one of the reasons it's good, it's got a Zenith movement in it. An El Primero movement, which is one of the best movements around. So it's sort of a funny thing. Sometimes you can have an excellent movement in a watch that's maybe somewhat better than the watch itself. And I think that's one case. Okay, so that's the first one, is a Tag Heuer Carrera caliber 1887. And it does have some Seiko in it, but the best part is Seiko. So that's the first one. The second one is a Seiko, okay? And the Seiko won an award for the Grand Seiko High Beat, okay? And it is a very near that $5,000 mark. In fact, I think that 4,800 I got was pretty much a condition zero. It wasn't from a Fifth Avenue Seiko boutique. Okay, this watch is this particular one came out in a limited edition. It's 40 millimeters, which I like. They only produced about 1,000 of these, and I sort of hate to recommend something that they had so few of. But it's a very good watch, and it's something, again, the Grand Seiko itself, in general, you can get those started around 3,400. And I think, at least in my opinion, Grand Seiko belongs in the area of High Horology. The Japanese watchmakers have done some incredible things. Later on, not today, but sometime in the future, I'd like to take a look at some of the other things that Seiko has done, especially with their spring drives and the kinetic movement and their automatic quartz, of all things. There's quartz with no battery. Okay. So Grand Seiko, that's another one. Take a good look at Grand Seiko, and if you want an award winner, take a look at the High Beat. Okay, the next one that I want to look at is one that should surprise nobody, and this is the Omega Seamaster Aquaterra. I say it should surprise nobody because I think one of the Seamasters was one of the ones I was looking at for GMT. And the thing that I really, really like about this is that 15,000 Gauss movement. Now, basically, that is about as anti-magnetic as you can get. And I have no idea what it would take to jar that thing magnetic-wise. But here's another. It's really an excellent watch. Now, I know that with Omegas, the chant is man on the moon. Well, Omega only won a 1 gram prize, and that was for the dark side of the moon, which I do like. The dark side, it's a $10,000 watch, so I had to leave that one out. The man on the moon is a great watch, and it's certainly a very collectible one, but the reason I didn't recommend it is that, well, I think I may have a separate video just on the man on the moon, because it's a lot more to it than that. And it depends. There are all kinds of different movements. It has a very interesting history. And so I think that thing deserves a little more attention. But unequivocally, the Seamaster Aquaterra with a 15,000 Gauss anti-magnetic protection is a fantastic watch. Okay. Oh, by the way, too, any Omega with a coaxial movement, I recommend, because the coaxial movement is where you find that 15,000 Gauss. All right, the next one is one that you may not have ever heard of before. And if you haven't, good, something new. I don't know much about it, but the more I learned about it, the more it just was like, whoa, this is an interesting watch. And it's called the Vulcan. And in particular, there's one that's called the Vulcan Cricket. Now, this one is part of the Vulcan 50s presidents, and this because there were like I think Eisenhower and Truman and Roosevelt and LBJ, all these presidents had a Vulcan. And I've come to really like this watch, and it's never won a Grand Prix. But what happened back when they first started the Grand Prix, the Horologerie, uh, Vulcan entered, and they made the short list. So they went up the next year. Again, they made the short list. All right. So, but then for like, I don't know, the last 12 years or so, they haven't even entered. Well, this year they did, 2016. Vulcan's in again, and again they made the short list, but we don't know yet whether they won or not. But this is a watch I think that is very much overlooked. Now, the $4,500 is sort of condition zero, but I'll bet you anything that's not going to retain its value in a good way for a collector, because you got to use one. Get one that's been pre-owned, and I'll bet you anything it'll drop the price by half. So I mean, if you're interested in investment in terms of buying and selling, then no. But if you're interested in it for the horology, yeah, that thing's got the Vulcan has about, oh, I'm trying to think. It's got this particular one has the V11 movement, which is a good one, and it has a large number of patents that had because of the really interesting work that they did. Okay, so that's number 4 for today. Now the last one that I'm going to recommend, I may have mentioned before, and this is the Zenith, and this particular one is called the Captain Windsor. And I really had to look for condition zero to find one under $5,000. More likely, they're going to be a little above 5,000, but you can find them brand new, unworn, condition zero, for $4,600 or less, possibly. This watch is something that is just amazing. They have a movement called the El Primero. The Tag Heuer caliber 36 is an El Primero, and everyone says, "Oh, it's got an El Primero in it. That's a great movement," and it is. And this particular one is 42 millimeters. And again, of course, it has the El Primero. Now, one of the things about, if you're interested in Zenith, I call it Zenith. I know the correct pronunciation is Zenith. And I probably should say that because it is a Swiss watch company, and that's the way they say it. So I'll try to say Zenith from now on. Anyway, any of their other watches, they have a whole series of watches that are called El Primero. The Captain is a little upscale on that. But I would recommend any El Primero, and you can get those brand new for under $4,000. And again, this is a good place to to buy used, because you can buy them for much less than that. They don't hold their value in the same way that a Patek or a Rolex does, which can be toward your advantage if you go to the pre-owned market. On the other hand, under $5,000 in high horology isn't that bad, really. Even the Petit Aiguille at the Grand Prix they have under 8,000. So these are all under $5,000, and I think you can really find some good high horology watches. These things have won awards. Zenith has won 6 Grand Prix awards. People don't think of Zenith as high horology, and if you're smart, you will. Okay, and the El Primero, great movement. Okay, now what I'm going to do next week, I'm going to have 5 more, and the 5th one, the last one, I'm saving the best for the last, is my very favorite, under $5,000, that I would recommend as high horology I think as you can get. But this first 5 that I had today, take a look at those. And I think you can find some great deals, and either new under 5,000 or pre-owned with a really big savings. Okay, now this is a good time to have your comments. What do you think? And I said, what do you put that volcano? That's the dumbest thing I ever heard of. That's okay. Or you like this? Or I'm sure there are other ones you're going to like, and perhaps next week I'll cover them. We'll see. But for right now, these are the first 5. Someone says, what would you recommend? Right off the top, I would recommend these. They're all award winners with one exception, and that is Vulcan. But Vulcan has been up shortlisted 3 times, which is no small feat either. So all of these have people who are a lot smarter about watches than I am saying, hey, these are good watches. If you like to subscribe, go ahead. We got room. And also, and very important, is leave a comment. And I'm sure, as all of you know by now, if you leave a comment, I always try to have a reply. Okay, until next Friday, this is Bill Sanders, and this has been WatchArtSci.